Aditi Mehta and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. The United States is pressing Ukraine to accept a peace proposal with Russia, though Kyiv says the original 28-point plan demanded too many concessions, including ceding parts of Donetsk and Luhansk and reducing its military. Russia said its air defenses shot down nearly 250 Ukrainian drones during overnight attacks in Taganrog. Strikes damaged 2 apartment buildings, a private home, a college, 2 industrial sites and a kindergarten, killing 1 person and wounding 3 others. Taliban vows necessary response after Pakistan airstrikes killed 10, mostly children. The escalation follows an attack on Monday in Pakistan's northwestern city of Peshawar. China's foreign ministry says the United States initiated the call between President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping. The atmosphere of the call was positive, friendly and constructive, ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said. India's Civil Aviation Ministry says it is closely monitoring volcanic ash plumes from the Ethiopian volcanic eruption. According to the Indian Meteorological Department, ash clouds from the Ethiopian volcanic eruption are likely to clear Indian skies by 7:30 p.m. IST. US President Donald Trump says he held a very good phone call with Chinese President Xi Jinping, describing US-China relations as extremely strong. Trump says they discussed Ukraine, Russia, fentanyl, soybeans, and other farm products. Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi has President Donald Trump on the phone call, their first since Takaichi triggered a diplomatic clash with Beijing over comments suggesting Japan could respond militarily to a Chinese attack on Taiwan. A U.S. federal judge dismissed criminal cases against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, ruling that the prosecutor appointed at Trump's urging was illegally installed. And now, viewers, let's tell you that in a new set of developments, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has stated that any revisions of the Ukraine peace plan must reflect the understanding reached between Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump at their Alaska summit back in August. Speaking at a news conference, he also cautioned that Moscow would view the situation differently if the next version of the peace plan does not align with the previous Alaska discussions. Let's listen in on his comments.
Положение плана Трампа основывается на пониманиях, достигнутых в Анкоридже на российско-американской встрече в Верхах в августе нынешнего года. И эти принципы в целом в плане отражены. У нас есть каналы общения с американскими коллегами, они задействуются, и мы от них ожидаем той версии, которую они сочтут как промежуточную с точки зрения завершения фазы согласования этого текста с европейцами и с украинцами. Тогда мы будем смотреть, потому что если там будет выморан дух и буква Анкориджа по тем ключевым пониманиям, которые мы зафиксировали, то, конечно, это будет принципиально другой ситуация.
Moreover, the Russian foreign minister has confirmed that Russia supported the initial US proposal and is now waiting for an updated interim draft after the US complete its consultations with Ukraine and Europe. Now, according to him, Russia maintains professional diplomatic channels of communications with the United States and does not intend to leak information until final agreements are reached. Regarding Europe, Lavrov has said that many Western leaders allegedly engage in leaks, speculation, and rumors which aim to undermine the Trump administration's peace plan initiative, particularly those parts reflecting the Alaska Agreement. Let's listen in to his remarks about Europe.
Ключевые положения плана Трампа основываются на пониманиях, достигнутых в Анкоридже на российско-американской встречи в Верхах в августе нынешнего года. И эти принципы в целом в плане отражены. У нас есть каналы общения с американскими коллегами, они задействуются, и мы от них ожидаем той версии, которую они сочтут как промежуточную с точки зрения завершения фазы согласования этого текста с европейцами и с украинцами. Тогда мы будем смотреть, потому что если там будет выморан дух и буква Анкориджа по тем ключевым пониманиям, которые мы зафиксировали, то, конечно, это будет принципиально другой ситуация.
And David K. Johnston, who's an American author, is joining us live from New York. I extend a very warm welcome to you, David, and thank you for joining us here on News X World. Now, do you think that the amended peace plan from the original 28-point draft proposal, is it likely to be rejected by the Russian side if it does not meet with its requirements?
Well, this is a plan drawn up by the Russians, and from the point of view of the Kremlin, this was a brilliant act of disinformation and bamboozling the Trump administration. Donald Trump has made comments making clear that he thinks that the United States drew up this plan. It's a Russian plan. It gives Ukrainian territory the Russians have been unable to conquer over to the Russians. And so adopting this would be equal to Neville Chamberlain's leading Europe in giving Hitler part of Czechoslovakia back in 1938. It is an astonishing development that the Trump administration doesn't recognize what it is, and I'll be quite shocked if it is forced upon the Ukrainian people who have suffered so much from the invasion of their country by Russia.
All right, now there is a sentiment that the peace plan that's being proposed and drafted, Russia has made really maximalist demands. Can you emphasize on some of those and how Ukraine is largely being sidelined?
Well, yeah, Ukraine has had nothing to do with developing this plan. The entire Donbass area, which has a lot of ethnic Russians and Russian speakers rather than Ukrainian speakers, would be ceded to the Kremlin. The size of the military that Ukraine can have would be shrunk, which means in the future, were Russia to come back, as I think is more than reasonable to expect, they would be even less capable of defending themselves than they have been for the last nearly 4 years. It would bar membership in NATO forever for Ukraine. So this is entirely a plan for Russian domination and to help Putin address a problem that his army is so bad he cannot defeat the Ukrainians.
All right, requested to stay on with us, David, as I have some more breaking news input coming in from Romania now, where Romania's defense minister has called a recent Russian drone incursion into Romanian airspace a new provocation after unmanned aircraft crashed on Romanian soil. Now, the incident has come as Bucharest deployed fighter jets following a night of Russian strikes on neighboring Ukraine. A Russian drone also crashed in Moldova, another country that has experienced repeated airspace violations since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Listen in to what officials had to say first.
O incursiune a unei drone rusești, o nouă provocare a Rusiei la adresa României, o dronă pe care armata română și eurofighterele germane au încercat să o dea jos. În final, tocmai mai devreme am primit informația că au găsit o dronă căzută, probabil acea dronă este, o să văd raportul misiunii în curând. O să-mi întrerup această activitate astăzi aici și o să plec înapoi la București. Cu un minut înainte am vorbit la telefon, am primit un mesaj, am vorbit la telefon și am primit informația că a fost găsită o dronă picată în vas lui. Foarte probabil, uitându-ne la ce se întâmplă, este acea dronă pe care au încercat să o dea jos avioanele, care s-a prăbușit singură, nu au tras în ea și probabil a rămas, ori a pierdut comanda, ori a rămas fără combustibil, zburat de ceva vreme.
Romania is exceptionally important to us for all the reasons the minister has just highlighted. We've already started the development of capability to do exactly what we know we need to do as an alliance, the U.S. being one of those 32 members, to make sure that these drones do not violate their airspace. As an alliance and as the United States, Romania will always be the central feature of this part of the alliance, and that the entire alliance and the U.S. is committed to it.
Let's now bring back David K. Johnston, who's an American author, joining us live from New York on this discussion. David, now it was only last week that Romania had scrambled several fighter jets over a drone incursion, and Moldova had also summoned a Russian ambassador over it, and it's now a repetition of that. So clearly no action is achieving the result that it intends to. Where is this going from here on?
Well, I think you're going to continue to see Russian military incursions in Europe, just as we've seen in Poland and elsewhere. Vladimir Putin has been clear for more than a quarter of a century that he wants to put back under the thumb of the Kremlin what were formerly the satellites of the old Soviet Union, and that he is a threat to the rest of Europe. And everyone involved seems to clearly recognize this problem except one man, Donald Trump.
All right, well, I'll leave it at that for now, David, and thank you for joining us here on NewsX World. Viewers, now let's shift our focus. Hamas and Islamic Jihad have said that they will hand over the remains of an Israeli hostage at 1400 GMT Tuesday, in line with the US brokered ceasefire with Israel. In a joint statement, the group's armed wings, the Ezzedine al-Qassam brigades and the al-Quds brigades, said the body was found during operations in the central Gaza Strip. Israel earlier accused the groups of violating the fragile ceasefire by delaying the transfer of the remains, which Islamic Jihad said it located on Monday. A source within Islamic Jihad has confirmed that the remains belong to one of the 3 hostages still held in Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office condemned the delay, calling it a serious violation of the agreement, and demanded the immediate return of all 3 deceased hostages still in militant custody. Dan Perry, who's a world affairs analyst, joins us live now from New Delhi. A very warm welcome to you, Dan. Thanks for joining us here on NewsX World. We do appreciate you giving us your time. Now, when do we see the final release of these 3 hostages? One has been done, but it's only the mortal remains that have returned. What about the other 2s?
This is obviously entirely up to Hamas. If we are to believe their narrative, by amazing coincidence, it took them, a week or so to find every additional successive group of bodies, even though they've had several years to think about, where they're located. I can tell you that in Israel, no one believes that this is true. The general assumption is that Hamas dragged out the return of the bodies over 7 or 8 weeks, basically, I guess 7. With the intention of buying time for them to reconsolidate their control over the populated areas of Gaza, and to sort of turn the protracted return of hostage bodies into...
All right, we seem to have lost our guest there, but we are trying to re-establish that connection. But let's tell you, viewers, that Hamas is set to hand over the remains of hostage later today, and Palestinian militant groups Hamas and Islamic Jihad said that they would hand over the remains of the Gaza hostage later under the terms of the US brokered ceasefire with Israel. Dan now joins us back. Dan, I hope you are able to hear us clearly. By returning the mortal remains, do you think this is a message of sorts that's going out? All right, we're facing some connection issues with our guest, Dan Perry, who's discussing the situation in Hamas with us right now. But as we try to reestablish that connection, let's tell you, viewers, that earlier on Tuesday, Israel had said that the delay in handing over a hostage body that Islamic said Islamic Jihad said it had found was a violation of the ceasefire that is already very fragile. Now, the Islamic Jihad said it had located the body of the hostage on Monday during search operation in the Gaza Strip. Dan now joins us back. Dan, I would first request you to continue and complete what you were already saying, and then a follow-up question.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. The basic idea is that it's widely believed in Israel that Hamas was purposely dragging out the return of the bodies of the dead hostages over almost 2 months, claiming that by miraculous coincidence, this is precisely the moment when they were discovering their location, a claim few believe, in order to buy time during which they consolidate their power and their control and their hold, their chokehold, over the populated areas of Gaza, which are the interior of the Israeli-controlled perimeter, where about 90% of the 2 million Gazans, unfortunately for them, live under the boot of Hamas. So during this time, Hamas has been assassinating rivals and appointing chieftains and taxing humanitarian aid that goes in, and when they don't impound it, and doing everything they can in order to prevent the implementation of what Israelis see, and I believe much of the region and the world sees, the key element of the 20-point plan, other than the end of the war and the return of the hostages, which is the disarming of Hamas and the handing over of the Strip to an alternative governing structure. Clearly, Hamas doesn't want to do that. This is, in my assessment, the reason why they dragged out the return of the bodies, which became the main issue of discussion over such a long period. And for the world right now, the question is to what degree they can return to a dynamic that compels Hamas to indeed disarm, which, as I say, is the fundamental key point of the 20, without which nothing else can follow. No other governing structure, no discussion on the Palestinian state, no reconstruction of Gaza. All these things are waiting to happen, but it depends on Hamas stepping aside.
All right, Dan, now I did wish to take another question with you, but I'm afraid I'm running short on time. Thank you for joining us. And viewers, with that, let's move on and tell you that Donald Trump's America envoy Masad Boulos has urged Sudan's warring sides to accept a new ceasefire, proposal that was presented by Washington on behalf of mediators. Neither side has accepted the plan. Boulos called for both sides to agree to the humanitarian truce without preconditions. Now, this renewed push for a truce follows a call from Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for the US to intervene. However, Sudan's army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has rejected the proposal, accusing Boulos of parroting the UAE's talking points. The UAE has been accused of arming Sudan's rapid support forces, who are at war with the army-backed government, but the UAE has denied the claims. Amnesty International has accused the rise of RSF and its committing of war crimes in Darfur, and the UAE has been criticized for facilitating their actions. Despite ongoing mediation, the fighting continues as both sides seek a military breakthrough.
We have appealed and we have asked repeatedly the two parties to accept this humanitarian truce as presented without any preconditions. We're working closely with him and his team. We are also working very closely with the RSF. So we are in daily contact with them. We have to overlook these comments and remarks and focus on the heart of the matter, which is the humanitarian crisis.
All right, viewers, and retired Major General A.K. Sawaj, who is a geostrategic expert, is now joining us live here at News X World. A very warm welcome to you, retired Major General A.K. Sawaj, and thanks for joining us here on News X World. Can you take us through some of the sticking points in the proposal as Sudan warring sides have refused to accept it?
No doubt. See, as far as the Sudan is concerned, this conflict between the military and the RSF is going on since April 23. And there is a catastrophe which has struck in Sudan Almost about 40,000 people have been killed. More than 1.4 crore people are displaced. And this war is not stopping, and there is a humanitarian crisis which has taken place. Now there is a requirement of getting a ceasefire, and this is being led by America. Now there is something called Quad, that is in these four countries are involved. US is there, Saudi, UAE is there, and Egypt is there. Now they have already passed a proposal wherein they say that there will be a truce, humanitarian, for about 1 month, and then the peace talks will start. However, this has not been accepted by the military. General Abdul Fattah Burhan, he is accusing that the UAE, which is a part of this Quad, it is the country which has been helping out the RSF. They are giving them the support in terms of ammunition, weapon, and also intelligence. And therefore, whatever proposal will be given by this Quad will be biased and will not be objective. Now, this is the basically accusation which is given by the military. However, as on today, this has taken slightly aggressive posture, in the sense the military is claiming that the RSF is doing a lot of crimes against humanity. They are killing people. Now, why this pact, which was not being taking place, why it has again revived? It has because now the Prince of Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he recently visited Washington, and there is where he requested Donald Trump. Since Donald Trump, he says, has already stopped 8 wars, and he must help out in stopping this war, and therefore a renewed effort is being now made to stop this war in Sudan. This is a basically war between the two factions within the Sudan, that is the military and the RSF, which is a paramilitary force. Since this sticking point is mainly this, that out of this Quad, which is basically UAE is seem to be close to RSF, and they have provided the weapon. Now, though the UAE is denying this accusation, I suppose what US will try to do is, it will now try to make sure the UAE is not in the forefront. Donald Trump will try to put its own pressure, and it will try to give an indication that they are totally unbiased and very objective. There is a chances of a ceasefire coming, because if there is a humanitarian truce, that is the requirement of the day, and possibly because Donald Trump, whatever you may say, has an art of stopping the war. You know, there are 8 wars which are stopped. Out of them, India-Pakistan war, which he had not ruled, but in others, there is a case in point. This was basically Rwanda, Congo, then also Cambodia, Thailand, Azerbaijan, Armenia, then Serbia, Kosovo, and then Iran, Israel, and Israel, Hamas. Now he's trying also for some sort of ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. So therefore, he had that acumen and people with him, the administrator who can bring end to this war. So Sudan war must be stopped. It is a humanitarian crisis. There is a death occurring due to a famine which has set in, and there is urgent required that truce should take place. I think the situation will be solved, because now Donald Trump has taken it as a challenge. It is only the military which has to accept it under General Burhan, and this pressure is being put that the UAE will not intervene and interfere, and it will be the US which will play a major role. I suppose General Burhan may agree to it, and there is a requirement. In fact, United Nations General Secretary has also requested and put a proposal. This war must stop, because this is war against humanity. There is nothing but a famine and catastrophe which are set in Sudan.
Well, absolutely. We do hope that truce plan is finally accepted. However, the generals of the nation do call it the worst truce proposal yet. For now, thank you, Major General A.K. Sawant, for joining us and giving us your time. Viewers, let's move on and tell you that the Court of Justice of the European Union has ruled that Poland's refusal to register a same-sex marriage violates European Union law. The couple, married in Berlin in 2018, had sought to have their marriage certificate recognized in Poland. However, they were denied registration on the grounds that Polish law does not permit same-sex marriages. The European Union Court emphasized that as European Union citizens, the couple has right to move and reside freely within the Union, including the right to lead a normal family life. The ruling also noted that Poland's refusal infringed upon their fundamental right to respect for private and family life. Now, Poland, which is traditionally Catholic, has resisted social reforms such as same-sex marriage and abortion rights, maintaining strict laws on both issues. This ruling could pave the way for other same-sex couples who married abroad to seek recognition in Poland. The Polish NGO campaign against homophobia welcomed the decision, seeing it as a step forward in the fight for LGBT rights in the country. The Séjour's ruling leaves the responsibility for recognizing same-sex unions to each member state, but it asserts that any recognition must grant the same rights as those in other European Union states. And that's all the time that we have for you. Keep watching News X